Hello and welcome to our class we're calling the Letters of John. And this will be the last of those classes as we are finishing this discussion with the third letter of John, 3rd John. And we're going to talk about that a little bit today as we close our study. We've gone through 1st John and 2nd John, talked about the situation John was writing to, the false teachers that were infiltrating the churches at his time and filling them with teachings that demeaned Jesus, saying that he wasn't the Son of God, and they were committing immorality, and they were acting in unloving ways towards the brothers and sisters. And John, in his first letter and second letter, said that those things clearly indicate that they're not real followers of Jesus, because if they were, that simply wouldn't be the case. So it gives them an idea of how to tell the real follower of Jesus from a false follower of Jesus. The second letter was written to a specific group of people and addressing a specific situation. You remember, as he encourages them to handle the situation that they needed to handle there. And then 3rd John is going to be a little different yet from those. We guess that 2nd John might have been kind of a cover letter or a quick read that would have been presented, left, or encouraged them to copy it so that they could keep a copy of at least 2nd John because it was a short letter, an easy read, and it kind of summarizes what's said in the larger work. 3rd John is different altogether and had a different function in the collection of letters that John may have sent with a group of those who were traveling, and we'll get to that here in just a minute. 3rd John deals with specifically a dictatorial kind of leader, a leader that is kind of going off on his own, doing his own thing, and not being particularly welcoming to others, especially those who are coming from John. Many of us have known church leaders in our past, and I certainly have, who are those who cause division by insisting on their own way, saying that their way is the only way of doing things, and insisting that others follow. They keep a pretty tight grip on the people in their flock, pretty quick to pull the trigger to send someone elsewhere if they're not doing what they think they need to do. And in fact, the churches in western Pennsylvania, where Lenore and I worked for a few years, at one point in our ministry, there were a number of churches that were well known for this kind of thing. One church in particular had a minister and church leaders who had a very narrow view of things, felt like everything had to be a certain way, and if they weren't, they were quick to move people onward. The people who came to my church, the church where I was working, from there said that church had disfellowshipped more people in the time that they had been there than they had in their membership. So they had sent many more people on their way than they actually had in their membership. I don't know, I'm not the judge, but that sounds like the possibility of a too narrow of a way of looking at things, and particularly controlling leadership in that church. Again, other ministers in that area did the same thing. Small churches, all of them homogeneous, all of them shared a number of distinctive beliefs that they said were required for those who were to follow God, and if you didn't follow those, then you weren't following God, and they were quick to send you away. I've told you the story before. Some of you will remember of the woman that came to my church from one of these other churches, and they wanted to talk with her, and so she said, "I'll only do that if you'll let my preacher, me, join in our conversation." And so I welcomed them into my house to have a talk with her, and they proceeded to very harshly disfellowship her right there in front of me in my house for coming to my church. That was their exception that they took with her. So again, just bizarre kinds of controlling ways of controlling people, and I'm sure they went back and told others how they did that, and their membership was very afraid to cross them, and so that was the way that they kind of held them to where they wanted to hold them. But in 3 John, we see that this is by no way a modern day problem. This is something that's been going on as long as there have been churches, as long as there have been organizations, really. But we see this happening even in the earliest part of Bible times, even within the first church. We see that in Asia Minor, the area around Ephesus, where John was located, and the area that Paul began planting churches in, and then John came in after the destruction of Jerusalem. Paul and the other apostles were long gone, and John was continuing to be, he calls himself the elder. He continues to be an apostolic leader, provide apostolic leadership for the churches in that area and beyond. And so as he writes this letter, he's trying to give the churches guidance, and it's really clear that at least in this one place, the church there was an individual who wasn't going to hear of it. So let's look at what it looked like. I mean, kind of imagine being in that day and time. Churches primarily, as we understand it, met in houses and formed in houses. They were smaller groups and had a leader, a single leader, or maybe a couple. But this leader would have been a man who was a Christian leader, taught and well versed in apostolic teachings and in the life of Christ and in what was expected in terms of Christian living. But this makes this clear that there are times that even those who didn't fall to some of the false doctrines that were going on in the area may not have completely agreed with the apostolic leadership and kind of wanted to do things their way. And that seems to be the case with a man that is addressed here in 3 John by the name of Diotrephes. We're going to get to him in just a minute. Unlike the first 2 letters, the 3rd letter of John is addressed to an individual. So it's clear again that John has sent out this group, this entourage of individuals who are carrying likely all 3 of these letters. The 1 John, the larger work, 2 John, the summary, and then 3 John is again addressed to an individual who is going to be hosting this group or this entourage, and John is recommending this group of people and asking this man, his name is Gaius, to house and care for the people who are traveling with his message, and so we see that this is to an individual, not a church or a group of churches. It's a short book. Let's go ahead and read through it. Read through it with me. Let's read the letter of 3 John. The elder, to my dear friend Gaius, whom I love in the truth. Dear friend, I pray that you may enjoy good health and that all may go well with you, even as your soul is getting along well. It gave me great joy when some believers came and testified about your faithfulness to the truth, telling how you continue to walk in it. I have no greater joy than to hear that my children are walking in the truth. Dear friend, you are faithful in what you are doing for the brothers and sisters, even though they are strangers to you. They have told the church about your love. Please send them on their way in a manner that honors God. It was for the sake of the name that they went out, receiving no help from the pagans. We ought to, therefore, show them hospitality to such people so that we may work together for the truth. I wrote the church, but Diotrephes, who loves to be first, will not welcome us. So when I come, I will call attention to what he's doing, spreading malicious nonsense about us. Not satisfied with that, he even refuses to welcome other believers. He also stops those who wants to do so, and puts them out of the church. Dear friend, do not imitate what is evil, but what is good. Anyone who does what is good is from God. Anyone who does what is evil has not seen God. Demetrius is well spoken of by everyone, and even by the truth itself. We also speak well of him, and you know that our testimony is true. I have much to write you, but I do not want to do it with pen and ink. I hope to see you soon, and we will talk face to face. Peace to you. The friends here send their greetings. Greet the friends there by name. So again, a brief little polite letter, but I think some good information. It kind of gives us some insight into how messages were sent back in those days. John obviously living in a time when there was no reliable mail service. You couldn't pick up a cell phone and send a text to some of the people who were under your tutelage. You couldn't write an email. That kind of thing is a modern day convenience. They sent people. And so John wrote these letters, with the things that he was concerned about in them, and he would send this group of people to different churches and say, "Listen, I just want you to read this letter to this church, and I want you to have them ask questions. If you can answer them, great. If not, write them down, bring them back, and we'll answer them and send it in another letter later." Obviously, a slow form of communication, but effective. And it helped people to receive feedback from John, who was clearly viewed as a leader. He calls himself an elder, although we get the elder. We get the sense that it was not necessarily just the elder of a church or a specific group of people, or even of a specific city. But he seems to be kind of an overseer of the movement in general. He's the last remaining apostle, and the last one who spent that special time with Jesus. And so it would be right, I think, for him to have special authority, for people to lean on him for helping them to move forward with their church and move the church forward in terms of its mission on earth. There is one hint that we get as to where Gaius might have been. We're not sure exactly whether this is one of the men named Gaius that we've seen before. There are a couple of men. There are a couple of those who are mentioned. One is a man that Paul traveled with, and he was from Derbe, and would have traveled around with Paul some. There was another, we assume, who hosted Paul in Corinth. And then this may be yet another Gaius, although it could very well be the same Gaius that hosted Paul in Corinth, because this Gaius is known for his hospitality and known for his good treatment of people, as is the Gaius that's addressed here in 3 John. This church tradition holds, and again, that's not necessarily Holy Spirit inspired, but it's somewhat reliable, that this Gaius may have been a church leader in the city of Pergamum, which again, one of the 7 churches that's mentioned in Revelation, certainly one of those that surrounds the town of Ephesus, the towns that John was concerned about, and the towns that received the revelation of John when he was on the Isle of Patmos. And so John has a relationship with these churches and knows these churches, communicates with them regularly. It could have been that this letter, one of the cities that it went to, was Pergamum, and 3 John was meant specifically for Gaius of Pergamum, who lived there and was a leader of the church. Again, there may have been several of these little house churches that met in that area, around that area. Perhaps Gaius is one of the leaders of one of the house churches, and he's a follower of John, listens to what John has to say. But it seems like in the same area there may have been other house churches, and one particularly that is led by this man named Diotrephes. And Diotrephes apparently has some kind of an issue with John, and we don't know what it is, but we're gonna talk about that here in just a moment. Start off with the first 8 verses as John addresses Gaius and seems to be thanking him for welcoming the group that he sent to him. And he says that he's received word. So apparently there may have been times before that a group was sent and stayed with Gaius, and as they come back and make their report, they tell John how loving he's been, how well that they've been treated, and he's thanking Gaius for treating them that way. Gaius is a very hospitable man, and is lauded by John for being faithful, particularly faithful in partnering with the truth. And John represents his message as a message that he got from Jesus himself, and so therein it is called the truth. And he's thanking him for being that. And then later he says, when you send them on their way, please send them on their way in a manner that honors God. So thank you for keeping them. Thank you for allowing them to stay with you and for taking care of their needs. And then when it's time, send them on their way in a manner that honors God. Verse 8, we ought therefore to show hospitality to such people so that we may work together for the truth. I think that's an interesting statement about hospitality, and how hospitality is actually being shown here to be a spiritual gift, one that people can practice. You and I both know people who are just really, really good at hospitality, that when you go to their house, you know you're going to be welcomed warmly, you're going to be treated well, you're going to be fed, good conversation, they're going to take care of your needs, and then you can move on. And then obviously there are others who aren't as good at that. Maybe it's not their spiritual gift, or maybe like Diotrephes, you're not as welcoming. And we'll talk about that again here in just a minute. Gaius, apparently, again, a man who was very, very good at hospitality. And when he did that, when he was able to take care of those people, John says that's one way that you can partner with them in the work of truth, in spreading the gospel and helping people to know what it is to know Jesus. Maybe it kind of puts us in mind of an older couple who regularly invites traveling ministers into their home and takes care of them when those people are ministering in that area. Certainly something that was more common in days past. Seems like hotels are more the preferred setting for visiting preachers these days. But certainly in times past, when guest speakers would come to town, if they'd be doing some kind of a campaign or a vacation Bible school type of a thing, it wasn't uncommon at all for families to invite them in and to have them stay. And that's what was going on here. These people were staying possibly in Pergamum with Gaius, and Gaius was partnering with them as they read the letters of John to the churches there and helped to answer the questions of the Christians in that area, and also helped them to reach out possibly and evangelize others in that area. Then we have the other side. We have Gaius as this hospitable, welcoming man who welcomes the visitors from John and helps them in their message and to get their message out. And then we have Diotrephes, who is apparently the opposite of Gaius. It appears that John has been in contact with Diotrephes, saying that he wrote him a letter before. And he says, but Diotrephes, who loves to be first, will not welcome us. I don't get it. We're not given all the information as to what there was between John and Diotrephes, what maybe Diotrephes objected to John. John doesn't go so far as to place Diotrephes in the same category as the false teachers that he mentions in 1st and 2nd John, and so it's pretty likely that he's not a Gnostic. But the phrase "who loves to be first" that he uses there in verse 9 seems to be indicating a controlling, selfish kind of leader, a dictatorial almost, one that's kind of a my way or the highway kind of a leader. And so this Diotrephes loves to be first. It's going to be his way. He's leader. He's a leader of this church. Again, doesn't necessarily denounce him as a false teacher, but he's certainly not a welcoming guy, not a hospitable guy. And apparently there's some kind of bad blood between Diotrephes and John. We don't know exactly what it is. We don't know if there was some kind of a personality conflict at some point in time. If something that John wanted to have taught that wasn't taught, maybe John didn't agree with a certain teacher that Diotrephes did. And we're just not told. There could have been a number of things that would have caused a rift in their relationship. But again, in this letter, we don't have what that is. And so we don't know what it is, but we know there's some kind of a break, some kind of a problem there. And because of that problem, because he wouldn't accept people who were sent from John, they were sent out. They weren't welcomed. They weren't treated well. And John says that I'm going to call attention to that when I come. He says not only has he not welcomed people, but he's also treated them poorly. And then anyone who wanted to treat them well, he kicked out of his church. He put them out of the church for wanting to welcome or serve those who came from John. And so clear again, Diotrephes is creating some separation between himself and John. And John says here and then a little later that when he comes to visit the Pergamum area, that there's going to be a reckoning. There's going to be a time when they get together, and he's going to talk to Diotrephes, hopefully personally, and try to put their differences to rest. And we hope that happened. Lastly, we get a note about John's good friend, Demetrius. So again, 3 characters in 3rd John. We have Gaius, who is the hospitable host who's hosting this group. We have Diotrephes, who is also a church leader, but not as hospitable, not welcoming, opposes John and his message, kicks people out of the church for wanting to treat nicely the people that John sends. And this Demetrius. Who's Demetrius? Seems to be that Demetrius is probably one of the the leader or one of the leaders of the entourage that John is sending to possibly Pergamum in this case. He's probably the carrier of the letter. He's probably the one who's going to read the letter in front of the churches and maybe be the one that's primarily responsible for answering questions and then taking questions back to John. So Demetrius is an important guy. It wasn't uncommon back then for the sender of this group, the entourage, to write a letter that recommends the group and its leader to people there, kind of as his way of saying, listen, I give them my full support, and they are who they say they are. They're good people, and you need to help them and treat them well. And that's certainly what he's doing for Demetrius. Verse 12, he says, Demetrius is well spoken of by everyone, and even by the truth itself, and we also speak well of him, and you know that our testimony is true. In other words, I know this Demetrius guy. He's a good guy, and you're going to like to get to know him. He's going to be a fellow that you're going to like. And so it's a letter of recommendation for Gaius, saying, hey, this guy's a good guy. The people with him are good people. You need to take good care of them. And then he talks to them talks to Gaius as he would a friend. I have much to write to you, but I don't want to do so with pen and ink, but I'm going to come and talk to you soon. And he gives the common closing to this letter, saying that he's going to come and visit him soon. So again, a very brief letter, one that often gets overlooked, and yet I think there are a couple of great messages that we can gain from it. One is the value of hospitality. We see that hospitality is a tremendous gift. It's a spiritual gift that some people have, and that when people are able to give hospitality, to have people into their homes, to entertain them, to treat them well, and to partner with some in the message of the gospel, maybe to tell others the message of the gospel. It's quite possible that God has given us our homes with the understanding that we'll use our homes in his service, that's what it was to be. Again, back in those days, a lot of the churches met in homes, that people would gather in leaders' homes, and they would have their church service there. That was a pretty common situation back then. And Gaius, again, apparently someone who is very hospitable, very kind, very willing to receive and to treat well those who are coming. And so we learn that, again, hospitality is a great gift to have. And are we hospitable people? I think is something that we can use in terms of application. Are we hospitable? Are we willing to invite people into our homes? Are we willing to support them in what they're doing, whether it be in our city or those who visit from other cities? In the passage that we read earlier in 3 John here, we see that the people that Gaius is keeping are strangers to him. And he hadn't known them before, but because John recommends them, he keeps them, and he helps them to do the work that they're doing, and that's really, really cool. We have an opportunity to do that sometimes during Christ Teens, right, where we bring in groups from all over the region, and we provide housing and food for a lot of them, several thousand, and in the past, and we have the opportunity to encourage them, to reinforce the teachings that they're getting at Christ Teens, and to send them on their way with our blessing. Countless groups have had very, very positive things to say about Westside because of the hospitality we've been able to show, and so that's a good thing. And obviously, you all are to be commended and greatly appreciated for the hospitality that you've shown in the past. Countless lives have been touched by it, and we hope to continue the opportunity to do that here in the future. We also see that there's a problem when we're not hospitable, when we turn others away, and for no good reason, especially those who are teaching truth. When we turn others away, when we refuse to be hospitable, when we refuse to take people into our homes and treat them with kindness and goodness, that has just the opposite effect. That turns people off from the truth. And Diotrephes in this book did that, and John says, imitate what is good, not evil. He's calling what Diotrephes is doing evil. And so we want to be people who do good and not evil. We want to be people who are hospitable and who care for others. We want to use our homes and whatever God has given us for the cause of the kingdom and for the sake of the kingdom. And in doing so, we push forward the cause of the truth, and it's certainly what we want to do. So that's the book of 3 John, and I hope you've enjoyed our commentary on the books of the letters of John. And the next time we get together, we're going to stay with non-Pauline writing. We're going to start talking about the letters of Peter. And so you may want to take the initiative to read 1st and 2nd Peter and see what Peter has to say to his audience. We'll be getting into that next time, and we're looking forward to doing that. And we will see you and enjoy spending time with you then. Thank you for being with me today.